Hello, this is the fourth episode in the series on money. The purpose of this series is to help you expand your financial future, to figure out if you have any subconscious beliefs that may be keeping you in a financial holding pattern or at a financial set point, and how to address and remove those beliefs and create a very clear plan to help you grow your wealth. We've talked about the energy of money, the power we give it, clarity, focus, intention, all the mental components to address and change if necessary, because all growth happens from the inside out. Well, today we get into the practical steps that you can take now, starting today, to create a financially sound life. My guest is going to walk you through a blueprint for achieving wealth. She took herself from $24,000 a year to over $2.5 million following this blueprint. I'm guessing you may want to do the same. It's coming up next. Stay tuned. Welcome to Shift or Get Off the Pot, the podcast that helps you get out of your head and into action so you can make your dreams your reality. Let's get to it. Welcome to the fourth episode in our series on money. To date, we have been talking all about mental aspects of money, overcoming subconscious blocks, limiting beliefs, financial set points. But on today's show, we are going to get into some of the practical steps and strategies that you can take to start growing your wealth. Today, I have brought back to the show, she has been with us before, a woman who has 25 years in the financial world, so quite a bit of experience there. And she has been working with numerous people and business owners, helping them to truly understand their finances and grow their finances as well. She is also the author of a new book, which I'm so excited to talk to her about because I know she has some blueprints in there that she will be sharing with us. The book is entitled She Grows Rich: How to Become a Financial Powerhouse. She is here today to help us learn some strategies on how we can truly step into an abundant life and grow our wealth. So welcome, Audrey Faust.
Hi, Kim. It's so exciting to be here and talk with you again. It's so much fun. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're back here, and I'm really love the title of your book. Absolutely love the title of that, especially, She Grows Rich, perfectly said, but then how to become a financial powerhouse, because I think so often we get intimidated by finances and investments and, okay, where do we put our money? In a savings account, a high yield? What's a high yield savings account? Where do you find those? All of that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that you have this out and that you're really bringing it to the forefront for people and laying it out there so they can understand, okay, look it's doable. It's not that difficult if you know what to look for, right?
Exactly. And it's I've been getting a lot of positive feedback on the book too. And thank you for liking the title. But as well, a lot of people have resonated with my story and just the simplicity of the book. How to, there's money mindset, there's your relationship with money, but then there's the practical stuff. Like you mentioned, creating the blueprint. And also there's a chapter on how to start investing in mutual funds, which, I think is so important. And how I mostly grew my wealth is by doing that.
So tell us a little bit about your background, because I know that you struggled a little bit in trying to figure all of this out and trying to get a handle on your finances. And so is that what led you to really start delving into the world of finances? I know you have an MBA in accounting. So what led you to all of that?
Well, I'll go back to when I was 27, 27 years ago. And the stories in the book, and it was the pivotal moment for me, Kim, was I had 2 young children. Um, and I didn't have any degrees at the time. So I went back as an adult to get my degrees. I had 2 young children. And when I was working full time, I was working an administrative job. But then with 2 young children, an infant and, a 2-year-old, 1-year-old, 1.5-year-old, daycare just didn't make sense for me. I couldn't afford daycare. So I looked for jobs that I could work in the evening to try to make some extra money, to help support the family. And the first job the one class I did do well in high school was accounting, but I never did go to college after high school. And, as I mentioned, that's another long story. But anyway, I went and took a class in doing tax returns. And I was sitting doing my tax return. And that year, I put all the numbers in the computer. And that year, it spit out that I was getting this big refund. And I was like, I must have did something wrong. This is a huge refund. What's going on? And the numbers were right. And here I got what was called an earned income tax credit. And you get this earned income tax credit when you're at the poverty line. Mm-hmm. And our income that year was $24,000, a family of 4. And it shook me to the bone. My mother was in a marriage that she wasn't happy in. My father struggled with mental illness, and she always felt like she was trapped in that marriage because she could not financially support herself. And she would always tell me over and over again, make sure you can support yourself. You make sure you can support yourself. And I realized at that moment that not only was I at the poverty line, but I couldn't support myself if anything would happen with 2 young children. And, it was a wake-up call. And that's, that was when I decided to make some changes and go to college. And, I was also continuing to work part-time because, we needed the income. But I also decided to go back to college and get my accounting degree. And through my part-time jobs, one of those part-time jobs was working at an investment firm, Vanguard, if you're familiar with them. Mm-hmm. What an amazing education. At that time, they had people in the evenings on the phones. And that was, my job for 2.5 years. And it was, they trained you for 6 weeks, which just blew my mind. And the education I got in that job, really transformed my life. But the one thing I realized is the only thing you can do wrong is not to invest at all. Mm. And so many women I work with and I talk to are scared. They have that fear of, I just don't, I don't know what to do. So I'll leave it in this money market and just leave it sit there versus getting it in the stock market. Even in a mutual fund, that's less risky than a direct stock, but mm-hmm. It'll give you a more income than, a money market. So that's kind of where it all started.
I think that's really common, though, that we are almost, I guess the word would really be just intimidated by, okay, where do you put the money? And it's just because of a lack of knowledge. And it isn't something that, depending on what courses you take in college, we don't learn all of this, obviously, at the high school level. And it depends on, okay, what am I looking at in college? But I almost think it would be great if it was required that everybody had to do an internship or so at a financial investment firm, because then you would hands-on practical experience and you start to see, oh, okay, this is what all of these different things mean. Because I think you're right. When you look at, stock market, mutual, penny stocks, what is it? What does it all mean? And where do I put that money? And what if I lose that money? But I want to go back to something you said just when you were kind of walking through your story, and that was that your mom felt trapped in a marriage because she didn't know how to take care of herself and support herself. And I think that was so common, maybe not as much today, but definitely maybe a decade or two ago, where a lot of women maybe didn't work enough. Maybe they worked outside the home, sure, but they might not have worked enough that they could have supported a whole family by themselves.
Yeah.
And then when you do, and I know this happened for me, when I did and I was able to support the family, the last thing I was thinking about was, okay, where do I put money to invest? How do I put this money aside other than high yield savings or my 401k that I had at the time? I wasn't looking at that because my mind was so focused on taking care of my 4 kids.
Right.
Putting food on the table. It's just life. I mean, that's just it. It's just life is busy. And so at the end of the day, you're like, hey, I just want to drop into bed. And so
Exactly.
You kind of have to, I think you have to plan for it. You have to say, okay, look, if I can just
Absolutely.
set aside an hour a day, half an hour a day, even if it's a half an hour a day to go, I'm going to learn whatever it is. I'm going to learn mutual funds. I'm going to learn how to invest in the stock market, whatever it may be. But I love that you took that and didn't sit back and say, oh, well, that's just the way it is. I'll just start making some money and try and pay off some bills, because I think that's what a lot of times we do. Make the money to pay off the bills. Whereas what I've learned to say, if you can flip that and say, wait, you got to set some aside for investing.
So I'd love to share another story with you, Kim, that when I first got it started in investing, even before I worked at Vanguard, I had no idea what a mutual fund was. I was also in my 20s at the time. Actually, it was before I even had children. And I was in a checkout line, and there was Money Magazine was there. And there was this couple that had said they invested $100 a month, and in 20 years, they had $100,000. I mean, to me back then, that was like winning the lottery. I was like, I got to get this magazine. And I read it, and I followed the steps in the magazine, and I couldn't afford $100 at the time, but I afforded 50. And I thought 50 is, it's still going to be change my life in some way. I knew we wanted to like upgrade our house and things like that. So throughout my entire life, even that $24,000 year that I had, I always invested at least $50 a month into a mutual fund since I read that article. Because and I talk about this in my book, and one of the reasons I wrote the book and had a whole chapter about investing in mutual funds is because if I never found that article, I never would have understood it and never would have probably gotten to where I've gotten today. But I always say, invest like it's an electric bill, right? So that $50 a month to me was like an electric bill. Like, I'm not going to not pay my electric bill. So, and the compounding of the money is where the growth really happens over the years. And then it just compounds and compounds and compounds. So if you get my book, there's a book portal where I have a calculator that actually shows you how it compounds. And you can also compare, if you would invest it versus pay a loan down and based on the interest rate. So there's that too, because I am not one that talks about debt free, because I still have debt. I will always have debt, but I am smart with the debt that I have. I have what's called a 7% rule. If it's over 7%, then look to paying it off. If it's under 7%, then don't pay it off. Like, invest the money instead. Don't necessarily spend it, but take the money that you would pay towards that debt and invest it instead, and you will make out a lot better.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely love that. Invest like it's an electric bill. It's so smart because, I think we can all find a few extra dollars somewhere that might be hidden. I have finally learned to go back, and I used to do it, every 4 months. Now I'm doing it every month, where I look and I go, wait, what's being charged? What am I spending money on, and do I really need that? And it could be a
Yeah.
membership that I don't even pay attention to. I forgot I signed up for it or whatever. And sometimes I'll find these things and I'll think, wait a minute, I'm spending $45 on that. What if I turn that around and invested it? So smart. I absolutely love that. But also I love that rule, or the 7% rule that you just mentioned too. That's a great way to look at it, because I agree with you. There's good debt and bad debt, right? And I think it's very hard if you look at it and you say, I'm going to be completely debt free. Okay, maybe you can strive towards that. That's great. But there is good debt and bad debt. And I think that's important to be aware of.
Yeah, definitely. It's better off to invest the money if the debt is under 7%. So, and I have a calculator that proves it. So,
that makes it so easy.
Yeah.
That makes it so well. And I think that's also part of this too, is that when things are difficult, and for a lot of people, and I was part of this, that it was kind of overwhelming. It was like, oh my God, there's so many options out there. Where do I put this? Where do I start investing? What do I do? Even with the 401k, when I was in when I have it set aside in a 401k, and I just kind of trust it, this is where it should go. But I didn't bother looking at it myself and saying, wait a minute, I can change where some of this money is going. And I wasn't paying attention to that, but that was just ignorance. It was ignorance because I was busy and I was tired and I wasn't really paying attention to that. And I'm like, oh, but I could have redirected some of that and made more money off of that than just letting it go all along. And I think it's a big part of this is just really breaking it down into manageable steps, but also just being educated on it. That's why I love that you've written this book, because I think it just lays it all out there.
Thank you. Yeah, it does. And I can tell you from personal experience, because I'm always educating myself on, I have like the highest Audible account. I listen to an hour a day to Audible, to different books, but while I'm walking. But just one book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I was listening to. Now, I don't agree with everything he says in there. And you don't have to agree with everything everybody says. But if you can pull one little nugget out, the one little nugget I pulled out of his book saved me $80,000 in taxes.
Wow.
So,
that's incredible.
Yeah. So I didn't know that you could roll a rental property over into another rental property and not have to pay capital gains tax. So actually roll two. That's what I did. I rolled two properties into one and didn't have to pay capital gains tax on this rule called 1031. Now there's more to it than that. You got to, hire somebody that knows this and all of that stuff. But that one little nugget in that book was just like, saved me $80,000 in taxes. And I was just like forever grateful.
Yeah. Well, there's always something that you can pull from just about every book. And you don't have to, as you said, agree with everything. But I have found the same thing. There's things I listen to that I'm like, I don't know. But then there's other parts. And wow, that either just opened me up to something brand new that I was not even aware of. And it can be an absolute game changer. But I love that $80,000. That's crazy. And capital gains is something that a lot of people are worried about.
Yeah. And that was just the taxes.
Oh my.
That wasn't the gain. The gain was, much more than that. So
in your work with, because you work primarily with women, right?
Yes.
And in your work with women, what is maybe the number one thing that you see as a struggle to really getting not just a handle on their finances, but being able to grow their finances?
Confidence. So when I work with women, they won't actually say it's fear, but I kind of see it as fear. They don't really understand the financial pieces of their business. So I always say you get into business because you have a gift, right? My gift is finance, but most people's gift is not finance. they have something else that they're great at, interior design or, entertainment or whatever. And the financial part comes with it. So like, it's not like you can skip that part if you're a business owner. But a lot of women, they're don't want to look at it because, they feel icky about it for one reason or another. And usually it's because they don't understand it. And when I work with women, what I often hear at the end is they feel so much more confident in understanding the numbers of their business. And now they're able to make decisions, which is so powerful on their business based on the numbers that they're seeing.
I think about in my own business and little things that have happened that I thought I really understood. And I feel like, you're always learning something, right? But even when I do business internationally with a production company, and if I'm paying a vendor over there, I didn't realize that there was such a discrepancy in the exchange rates between banks themselves, right? And so like I could go to my bank and it would be to send something, it could be 1.2%. No, it's like 1.273%, right? And I'm like, that little 3 at the end to me would be no big deal. But when you're talking $100,000 or hundreds of thousands of dollars, like, oh, that 3 matters. And then I found out other banks are at 1.282. And I'm like, what? But then on my phone, I have an exchange app, and my exchange app is low. Now, I probably shouldn't say this on it, but whatever. I don't know that I'd send hundreds of thousands of dollars through the exchange app. I needed to go to the bank. I felt comfortable. I knew that the money was wired. Yeah. But it's 1.234. I'm like, what? That's a big difference when we're not talking like $20 difference. Yeah. We're talking like $6,000 difference. And I thought, how do I not know this? Because whenever I'm traveling, I use my exchange app all the time. And then I'm like, oh, well, no wonder why I'm showing it should be this amount. And you don't notice it on a lunch, that's $30.
Right.
It's now $32. Okay. But when it's, and I thought, wow, that's so, and I didn't realize that. I thought it was universal amongst all banks that they would set that exchange rate. I didn't know that. And now I've just learned something new. And I'm like, okay, I have 2 different banks. I'm like, I'm going to send through this bank because it is a little bit different,
You just taught me something. I did not know that, Jen. So.
Well, but I honestly didn't think that 1.273, if you leave off the 3, even if that 3 is a 1 or a 4, it's a huge difference. And I didn't know that, but the calculator's become my very best friend now. But
I knew it varied by day. Like it varies, today's rate's different than tomorrow's and, all of that.
It does, but I totally didn't know that it changed between that different banks have different rates. And it may not be that much of a difference, again, if you're only talking about $100 or $1,000. But when you're talking about $200,000, huge difference. Yes. And I just wasn't even aware of that. So that was eye-opening for me this week. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I felt very ignorant at the time when the banker looked at me. Didn't you know that? I'm like, no. It's like, whoops.
Nobody's going to know that.
Thank you.
Really?
I said, really? I'm not in here all the time. I think almost like anything, it's repetition. The more that you do it and you start, and I look at that with the money investing too, is that once you start doing it, have you found that once people start doing it, it's a little bit easier to start, okay, maybe I can diversify now?
Yeah. I think, I can speak for me as well. Like I didn't know anything when I first started. And when I first started investing up $50, after about a year, I saw how much it grew. It wasn't just, $600 in that account anymore, what I put in. So and then when you see that growth, then you're like, okay, let me see, maybe I can put 75 in, maybe I can put 100 in. And I think you build confidence sometimes by just starting. Right. By just starting to look at it and then starting to understand it. And then like when you see the difference, then you're like, oh, wow. Okay. I do know what I'm doing here. It's not that hard.
Yeah. I honestly did that with Bitcoin where I put some money into Bitcoin and a little bit at first. And then I was like, I didn't do anything with it. Didn't touch it, didn't play nothing. I just kind of let it go. And then all of a sudden I was like, what? Look how much is there, And then I was like, and I know that I could have probably done more with it. I could have said, because I know a lot of people that buy and sell, get on and do all that stuff. And so it took me a little while, but then I started doing a couple of things and it did grow. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I lost a little bit in some, but I was like, all right. And I know that's probably not the best. You're probably sitting there going, Bitcoin. Oh, come on, Kim. Maybe it's not the best place or the safest.
I mean, I don't feel comfortable in Bitcoin, but good for you. Like my risk level is like, I don't understand Bitcoin. Maybe I need to educate myself more on that. But yeah, I have a colleague that I work with who's in Bitcoin, and he was always trying to, you should put some money in Bitcoin. I'm like, I don't understand it. Yeah. It's not real.
I know, that's it too. I was like, wait, what is this? I listen, to this day, I don't truly understand it, but I took a course and I got myself set up on some things. And I'm like, hey, I might as well just do some of this and see. And it wasn't like I was putting a ton of money in. I mean, I probably put 1,500 in. I think it was initially, I was like, oh, okay, I'll figure this out, And what, for me, it's been kind of a rule of thumb is like, what can I have? Almost like gambling. For the Bitcoin, it was like, how much can I afford to lose, right? And what am I willing to lose if that's the case? Which is probably not the healthiest mindset way to look at it. I get it, but I was also like, how much can I set aside here, and then say, oh, if I don't know this, because I was trying to understand and figure it out. But it's just part of the process. Is there maybe a minimum that women or anybody need to have to start invest? I know you talked about, setting aside maybe $50 a month, or even if it's $25 a month, something. But if you want to say, okay, look, I am up against the wall. I want to retire in the next 5 years and I really haven't saved anything. What would you suggest they do?
The only thing I can say is it's never too late to start. Just start. Just yesterday, you should have started, if not yesterday, today.
Yeah.
And I would, if you have nothing and you're, at that place in your life, I would probably consult a financial advisor just to see what they say,
Good point. What I know is, or what I have seen is, it's very common, especially amongst the entrepreneurs that I've worked with, to say, I can't do that yet. When I make the money, then I can start putting it aside. Then I can start investing, or I can save it, or I just need to get to this level. And then I can start doing it. So what would you recommend for people that have that mindset around it, or maybe that fear of, oh, I don't have enough to even put anything aside yet?
Well, a lot of people think that, but they're not really looking at their numbers. So, we talked in the beginning where we were going to talk about the blueprint. So I'm going to bring that in.
Yeah, no, I'd love to.
So the blueprint, I have a blueprint for your personal finances that's in my book. And I have a blueprint for business finances, which I work with my clients on. And they kind of go hand in hand, right? Because you need to make money in your business before you can bring it over to your personal. And that's what I help women do, Kim, is to be profitable in their business. And so many women come to me and they're not profitable in their business and they don't know why. So that's when we go to the blueprint. Okay, let's figure out why. And I don't like the word budget. I hate the word budget. So it's not a budget. It's a blueprint. And the reason it's a blueprint, not a budget, is because it's flexible, right? So you get to decide where you want to put your money. And we take a look at the past, right? And we do the average of whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and put it into a spreadsheet, income and expenses. And then we also look at what you're paying yourself and the potential taxes that you would have to pay or have paid or whatever. We have a starting column. This is where you are. This is your average. And then we have a goal column. And what we do is work together to figure out how to get from where you are to where you want to go. Most of the time it's pricing. 28% of women are offering the same services as men and charging less. So, sorry, I got that statistic wrong. Women charge 28% less than men do. So that's the whole. So as a whole. So first of all, increase your prices by 28%.
Yeah. The easiest thing to do, increase the pricing.
You would think it's easy, but we get all caught up in the mindset, right? And our value and our worth and
a fear. If I put that out there, are they going to say, okay, or am I going to get pushback? And, you might get pushback if you don't believe you're worth that. So there is the mental aspect of it. But it is from a practical standpoint, it's like, okay, it's easy to just make it, another $1,000 more, whatever it is, or make your hourly wage a little bit more. But you're right. It's a lot of times we get so in the head about it that, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do that. Well, what if they say no? What if I get pushback? Oh my gosh, what if I lose the client? Like, if you've had them for a while, don't you think they're going to talk to you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I call that making decisions for your client. Stop making decisions for your client.
That's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
You're deciding for them. You don't know what they will or won't pay. You're making guesses based on what you think, not fact.
Yeah.
So you and I are both James Wedmore fans. And, he says you are not your business, right? So take you out of your business. You're the CEO of your business. And that means if you're not pricing based on you, you're pricing based on the service that you're providing. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. It's not just you. If you have a team, it's your team. It's the administrative work. It's the sales. It's the marketing. It's, I like to say your net profit should be at least what you can make in a full-time job somewhere, not your gross. Everybody gets so obsessed with the gross, the revenue, the income. But realistically, you need your profit to be able to support you, not the gross. Or your profit plus your salary if you're pulling a salary in your
salary. And that's the other thing too. I think it's easy when you start a business and you just say, okay, well, everything that comes in is in my personal account, like the commingling of the funds.
Oh, yes.
And it's like, no. You have to set up a business account right away and you have to separate those things. And then also write out what are your expenses. Like I learned very quickly early on that I had to have a list of, okay, what are all my expenses and everything,
Yes.
And it could be even if I have to get new printer ink. Okay, well, that's an expense, every little thing and go, okay, that's an operating expense because how would a company run everything? And what would be the things that are applied to operating expenses of the business as well? And then, okay, am I willing to pay myself a salary? How much am I going to be paying myself? Am I going to say, okay, I'm going to grow the business for a little while first? If I can afford to do that and then start taking a salary? But I think that's absolutely right. You have to understand if you're going to set it up properly, and we're talking about setting up a business properly, you have to have the two separate accounts so you're not commingling those funds.
Well, another fun fact about that, Kim, and that is one of the things I preach. You should have a business credit card and a business checking account at a minimum the first day you start. Keep it separate. 2 reasons. Most people these days are getting an LLC, right? Because they want to protect their personal assets from the business. if you're commingling your funds, you're nullifying the LLC.
Mm-hmm.
So you might
Good
as well have
point.
not even gotten the LLC.
Yeah.
Because now you're saying my business is my personal, it's all the same, all the money is coming out of the same account, and you have completely nullified the LLC. So that's the legal reason to keep
Yeah.
it separate.
Yeah.
But you're also, the other reason is you're making it a nightmare for yourself come tax time.
Mm-hmm.
If you have everything separate, you have a credit card. It doesn't even have to be in the business name. You can just have, say, this personal credit card I'm going to use just for my business expenses, as long as that's all you use it for. You have one credit card, one bank account. That's all you have to look at come tax time to make sure everything's correct. So, yeah, like you're speaking my language, Kim. Separate.
Separate. Well, it does make it much easier, that's for sure. But also, on that point, when you do separate it too, you can really have a better understanding of what the numbers are and what's coming in. And then you can take a look at, wow, all of this is costing me and I'm not even charging for it, like under the umbrella of what am I charging? And when you have it in front of you, then you can say, wait a minute, I'm so lowballing my value when I am, offering my services to clients and I'm telling them what it is. I have to really look at this. And then I always add a percentage onto that and go, this is what the operating expenses are. This is what my time's worth. And then I added a percentage on top of that because that's just the extra for anything else that comes up as well.
Taxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't forget about taxes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You have to put that in. I mean, I think that's the thing that's so important for people to understand is that that's how a big business would run. And I do love the expression that James says that you are not your business and that you have to separate that because I think so often we take it personally. I mean, I learned a long time ago in sales that, just that rejection, don't take it personal. It's not personal. It may just be that they don't want this. And so it's, whatever the service is or that you're offering. But I do think it's very common, just from my experience in working with women and even when I was starting my business, that we do tend to charge lower. Women tend to charge lower. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I will say, though, on the other side of that, I have seen in recent years, probably I would say in the last 2 years, I have seen this big push for a lot of talk about, your value and this and this and this, and people putting out these ridiculous prices that in a sense, I'm kind of like, but what's the value? And there isn't much value there. It's kind of like, well, I was told I'm worth this much or whatever, and this is what this should be. And then they're charging, I don't know, 25,000. And I'll be like, and this is my experience with my production company going, okay, but wait a minute, what are you giving me? Like, what exactly am I getting in return for that? And I do think you have to pay attention to that. Like, what's the ROI? So I always look at it. What would my client say? What would be the ROI for them if I'm charging this? Because I think that makes it a little bit easier then, because I try and put myself in, like, say you're not your client, you're trying to make decisions for your client, but I also find it helpful for me to sit in that seat because I do have vendors I buy from, right? And I can sit in that seat and go, okay, well, what is the value here? And am I getting the value for that? Because then it helps me to look at the value I'm providing.
Right. No, agreed. And, I've seen that too. And, value is subjective for sure.
Yeah, that's absolutely so true. So true. I would love to talk for a little bit more about the book and about what you have in the book, why you wrote the book, and what some of the chapters that are in the book.
Great. Sure. So I wrote the book because, as I said, my friend and my story and all of that, I wanted all the personal finance knowledge and how I've grown my wealth from nothing to $2.5 million net worth. I wanted all that knowledge to be accessible to every woman, right? Mm-hmm. So they can take that book, that Money Magazine article was so important in my life. I want my book to be that for somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to share all my gifts in a place that anybody can afford, right?
Yeah.
Anybody can afford a book. Anybody can pick up a book and read it and educate themselves.
Yeah.
And I even say in my book, like, I talk about that $80,000 tax savings. Like, you should, in one way, shape, or form, constantly be educating yourself around your finances. Learning, like, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always learning, but to be able to share that, like, book with everybody has just been really important to me. And it probably goes back to my mother being stuck in a marriage and not being able to financially get out of it. And, part of it goes back to that. Part of it goes back to me when, I was younger and was like, wow. I don't think anybody should be stuck in a place, whether it be a marriage or whatever, and be unhappy for the rest of their life. Like, my mother was very unhappy, unfortunately. And, I don't want that for anybody.
Yeah. I mean, I had a similar, my mom was in a similar, it was very similar in her second marriage. It was the same thing. And unfortunately, very, very talented woman. But, it was because of the fear of not understanding. And also part of it was a societal thing. It was kind of growing up where the man's supposed to be the breadwinner and all of that. And it was hard for her to adjust to that. But watching that, I thought, God, if you had understood finances, if you had some money set aside, it would have been so much easier for her to say, you know what, even to get the support, even to just, because I think it does give you that confidence. It's like when you're building a business, when you get a couple of wins, or even if you're in sales or whatever you're doing, even if you're just in the corporate world, when you get some praise or you get a couple of wins, that momentum starts to build. And with that comes that confidence, and they work in tandem. And if she had understood a little bit more, it's the same thing. If she was able to educate herself on that, or even start putting something aside, things would have been quite different for her. 100%. I know that, but I did the same thing. I think in watching that, I made a decision that I'm not going to go down this road. I want to know, and I want to have a handle on this, and I want to figure it out, because let's face it, the reality is we all can make a change if we choose to make a change. But you need that support, and that support could be in a book. It could be in a magazine article that you read, and it can be the thing that you decide, oh, I'm going to take action. You could have just walked away from that and said, wow, that's great. Good for them. Or it could be, I'm going to take action on this and move forward. So I love that you wrote that.
That's true.
I love that you wrote that. I love that you have the blueprints in there as well, because and that you don't use the word budget. I hate the word budget too. I think a lot of people do. I think it's almost like weight loss. It's when people say, I've got to lose 10 pounds. It's kind of like automatically your mind goes, but then it's like, oh, we have to start budgeting. No. And then it's almost like you spend more, right? It's almost like, oh, well, that's not really going to matter. So it changes it for you. So I love that you use the blueprint, which is fluid.
Not, it's really simple format for the blueprint. So it's like, I'll explain it a little bit here. You take your monthly payments, car payments, house payments, all of that, which come out automatically. You also need to average in your electric, because you have to pay that. And then, so you get a number there. Then you get, I want you to save, right? Like, that's the next thing you go to. So many women come to me and say, well, I don't have anything left over. And if you're saying that, you're looking at it wrong. You should be saying, I don't have any left over to go buy that, new purse I want. Not, I don't have any left over to save. So good saving, point. Your monthly bills come first, and then your savings, like whatever it may be, $100 a month to start, $50 a month. And then what's left over is what you spend. So, and you don't have to track that like, I went to the grocery store, and, how I teach people to track it is have one credit card, and you just put all those charges, your monthly payments, onto one credit card, and you pay it off every single month.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see every month you're spending $2,500 on everything. And that's, your budget. If you're going over the $2,500, oh, I just said the word budget. That's your blueprint. That's, that if you go over that like 1 month by $200 and you don't, then okay, next month you bring it down by that. So you only spend $2,300 instead of $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
So, and maybe you carry that $200 over for 1 month on your credit card, and then, you spend less the next month. That's kind of like, I hate like the little nitpicky of tracking every single, coffee or,
that's almost
store,
unrealistic.
all of that. Yes, it's so. But if you have
almost
one credit
that sets
card
up
that
a
you're putting
limiting
it all
belief.
on, yeah,
I think it does, because then you go, oh my God, I've checked this, I can't do this, I can't do that, and then you're like,
and nobody's going to keep up with that.
Yeah,
nobody is.
Exactly.
I mean, very few people are.
But I also like that you just said that, okay, so if 1 month, so you pay it off every month. Great. That is the goal. Not everybody can do that. And I understand not everybody can do that. Sometimes you have things that come up and you have to put it on a credit card. And there's an expense. But what you just said was, so if the next month you can pay $200 more on it, or you can pay a little bit more towards it until you can bring that down. I mean, you have to sometimes find that spot where you can go, okay, with a goal of within 3 months, this will be paid off.
Yes.
So you're not carrying those finance charges, because it's those dang finance charges that will.
Yes. They're like 25% now. Ridiculous.
Oh, they're so high. When I first got married, we were going around places Christmas shopping, and they were like, everybody, and they do that now. Would you like to open a credit card and save 20%? Da, da, da. And we were like,
I know
sure, And all of a sudden my 800 credit score started going down. I'm like, what? And then it was like, so I learned very quickly, pay all that stuff off quickly. Because I mean, those interest rates, no interest for X amount of months, right? And then all of a sudden, boom. And then you're like, oh, okay, it wasn't really the smartest thing. But they get you. I have also learned, I don't open any credit cards at stores or anything, because I get all my airline points on my business credit card. And I'm like, I like my airline points. Thank you very much.
And I use the Capital One cash one. I like my cash.
Yeah.
Like, that's the benefit of using a credit card. If you pay it off every month, you actually make money using a credit card, because there's benefits that they give you.
Okay. And that's true. And not everybody knows that, because I have the same card. I have the Capital One card too with that. And when you pay it off, I'm like, oh, look at that. I just got something here. It's a reward though.
Yeah.
It's a reward. And honestly, on that note, real quickly, I think it is important to give ourselves rewards along the way for some of the things that we've done to just start growing
100%.
Our income, or I followed the blueprint this month. So what's my little reward? And maybe it's not buying $1,000 purse, but
exactly. But, I have a whole chapter actually on celebrating, because as you know, I'm a certified neuro coach, and there is neuro psychology around celebrating. You get dopamine hits, you get, oxytocin, all of the good brain chemicals happen when you celebrate. But you're right, it doesn't have to be $1,000 purse.
But it does
can be, taking the day off and going to the beach or something like that.
That's true. That's very true, and that is very important, because it does, again, that helps to build that momentum. It gives you the win. Yeah. Once you get the win, it builds the confidence, build the momentum, all of that. And also, okay, so you did mention earlier that you have a whole chapter on mutual funds as well.
Yes. Investing in mutual funds. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So it tells you exactly what to do. Different mutual fund companies you can look at, as I mentioned, I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't tell you which ones to invest in, but I can tell you what to look at when you pick a fund.
Yeah.
And I'll also say you can't pick a wrong mutual fund. You're always going to make money. So maybe one's making 12% and one's making 11% and another one's making 10%, but it's still better than the, 4% you're getting in a savings account. So
right? In a high yield savings account.
Yeah, high yield.
Yeah, I mean, like,
And
let's
4%
clarify.
is good compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, but in a regular savings account, you're like, I don't even know what it is.
Not even 1%. Those are more like a 0.5%.
0.5% or something. Yeah, so get it out of there. And then you also have to pay, I think. Don't they like charge you monthly fees?
I don't know.
I remember that. And I remember my kids going, what is all with this? And I have to pay $12 a month and I'm only saving, whatever. I'm like, get it out. But I love that you've shared these practical tips because I know you are a certified neuro coach and I know that that's important. And I obviously, because this whole money series, we started with the mental aspect, but I wanted to bring in both sides of it because you have to lay the foundation. And we know that we all, I think many of us have limiting beliefs around money and whether
almost everybody does.
Yeah. And,
very few people though.
That's true. And wherever it stemmed from, okay, fine. But that has to be addressed because I think, if you aren't aware of that, then you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again and you're getting the same results. But part of that is understanding, okay, what are some of the practical steps that I can take to start growing my wealth? And if it's as simple as open up 2 different accounts, have one and just charge everything on this so it makes it easier, or set yourself up on a blueprint where you can look at it and be aware of it. That can be the first step to understanding. But I love, as I said, I love that you wrote the book. I love the title of the book. I know that you've been doing work in helping people to really understand their finances and to just start looking at them and paying attention so that you can grow your finances. Because let's face it, it's empowering. It's very empowering. And the other thing too is that it can change very quickly. It can change very quick. It's not like it's going to take you 10 years if you start. Because what I found is that even if you start small, that $50 a month can soon be $500 a month.
Yeah.
Because you've set it aside.
You will definitely see the compounding because you get excited, you get a raise, or you start making more money and you want to put more towards it. So it's, I love it. Obviously, I didn't grow my wealth at $50 a month to what it is today, but
I know, but that was the first step.
Effect.
It's a snowball effect. It's the first step. And then it opens you up to starting to invest in other things, and whether it be buying property or whatever it may be, but it does open you up to that. So, and you don't want to wait and keep telling yourself, well, once I make money, then I can start doing it. It's like, if you can just find a little bit and start small, that's the beginning. And that's that beginning when it starts to grow. It's like, whoa, like me with the Bitcoin. I was like, I don't know anything about this, but I took a course and I was like, okay. And then I was so surprised to look at it and go, holy cow, that did really well. Yay, go me. And then it's like, okay, so that was a good win. But there's always a baby step that you can take. And it's that action that's going to make the difference for us. So, Audrey, thanks so much for being here. We will link the book title and we'll put a link into the book itself down below in the show notes. And of course, with your information, how people can connect with you. Again, the title of the book is She Grows Rich, How to Become a Financial Powerhouse. Love that title.
Yes. And it's available on Amazon. It was a bestseller on Amazon its first day out. So
yay! Yeah, I would imagine it would be great. I mean, it's a great gift too. I always I give my kids for years. I've been giving my kids gifts at Easter and at Christmas, and even at their birthdays, they always get a book, and it's usually an inspirational book, financial book, something like that, to help them. So so get the book either for yourself or for someone else. Anyway,
sounds great.
Any way you want to do it, but it's going to be helpful to you. So thank you so much, Audrey, for being here. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you being part of the money series and giving us these practical steps.
Thanks, Kim. Had a lot of fun here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining me here today. If you want some help achieving your goals, you can grab the Success Bundle link down below or head over to my website, KimKelleyThompson.com, where I have several free resources to help you. If you like what you've heard today, please consider hitting that subscribe button and join me throughout the week for episodes that will help you make your dreams your reality. I'll be back again soon with another edition of Shift or get off the pot.